Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. So this is the first proper video on this channel, so I think it's only right that I introduce myself. So, hello, my name's Natalia, I am 16 from the UK and I have just finished my GCSEs, which is what we'll be talking about today. I finished my GCSEs about 6 weeks ago, so I really wanted to make this video to share my experiences and my advice for those going into year 10 and year 11. This video is going to be split into 3 parts. Part 1 will be for advice for year 10s and what to do going into year 10. The second part will be for those going into year 11, and then the third part will be just general advice for both year groups. The reason I'm splitting this video into 3 parts is because I feel like you have a lot of videos that address the issues that year 10s face, and you don't have many videos addressing the jump from year 10 to year 11, which in my school was actually quite significant. So I thought it would be nice to split this video into 3 parts just to give each year group their own little section. So I have my notebook here and we are going to begin. My first piece of advice for year 10s is to make notes as you go along. I took history and I wish I had taken notes from the start and made revisions resources from the start, because when you get to the end of year 11 and you're trying to revise for many subjects, it's so difficult to be able to keep on top of everything, and with content heavy subjects such as history, it can become really stressful if you do not know the key terms and key people and dates from the start. So with things like history, I really suggest revising as soon as you can, and after every lesson, making those revision sources so you are definitely okay when it comes to year 11. I think another piece of advice for year 10s is, because this is the first time that you've been asked to probably work independently, make sure you understand everything, because especially in things like maths, if you don't understand the basic algebra concepts, you're going to find it really hard to understand the much more harder algebraic concepts. And I definitely regret not asking teachers for help when I needed it. It is okay to not understand everything. The exam boards are not wanting you to understand everything. You are definitely not going to understand everything. But if you are able to keep on top of what you don't understand and what you do, and be aware of that, and keep asking for help, because that is definitely not a weakness, then you will be okay. This tip kind of applies for year 11s as well, but it depends when you do your coursework and for what subjects. So for me, I had coursework in drama and music, and my music coursework was quite a lot actually. It definitely took up a lot of my time, but what I found is to get your coursework done ASAP. You, especially in year 10, are so overwhelmed by everything, and you've got a lot more to do than you were used to, that if you're able to get that coursework done as soon as you possibly can, while everyone else is still struggling with it, you have it done and sorted, and you will be able to move on from it. And also it gives you more time to correct it if it is not exactly what your teachers want. Again, this is another tip that sort of applies for year 11s as well, but I'm putting it with year 10s, and it is to keep on top of everything. It is really hard to be able to keep on top of everything, and that is something that I still struggle with to this day, and I've finished my GCSEs. If you are able to understand when you have exams and topic tests and homeworks due in, it will be so much easier and less stressful. I know it may sound weird if you are able to recite every piece of homework that you've got due in that week, but it is definitely not weird, and it is definitely something that I am very grateful I was able to do, because you won't just be helping yourself, but you may be helping your friends if they ask you as well. So just making sure you understand when everything is, and you understand when you have tests in your subject and your school, and when every piece of homework is due in, so you feel like you are in control. Another piece of advice for year 10s is to ask people that took your subject that are in higher years. I personally didn't do this because I was pretty adamant with my subjects and I knew exactly what I wanted to take, but for those of you who don't necessarily know what you want to take and are still a bit unsure if the subjects you chose are for you, ask people that are either in higher year groups or in a year above you how they found your subjects, especially if they went to your school, because they would be able to tell you about how homework is and what the teachers are like, and if the subject is really for you. I definitely had a few friends that definitely found their subjects harder in year 10 and didn't want to do them anymore, so they had a lot of stress to go through with choosing a new subject, and of course you don't always start at the start of year 10 with your chosen subject, so if you have to choose, you miss key concepts that may have been put out in the first few lessons, and that is just not a position that anyone really wants to be in. Another piece of advice is to get the right revision guides. I had a friend in the year below me who got the wrong science revision guide. Make sure you have the revision guides that are for your course, because especially the ones like the CGP revision guides, they are structured in a way that will let you know everything you need to for your course and the content, and nobody wants to be revising from the wrong revision guide. So just double check with your teachers and the staff at your school that you're definitely getting the right revision guides, and especially get the ones they recommend for you, because that's the ones that they know will help you pass your exams. Another piece of advice for year 10s, which also applies to year 11s but in a slightly different sense, is that mocks aren't everything. You are not going to get the grades in your year 10 summer mocks that you're going to get at the end of year 11. I was definitely in that boat. I got, in my year 10 mocks, I got a 3 for drama, and then in my year 11 mocks, I was 1 mark off a 7. Those mocks are purely there just to signpost where you are in that subject, and it's really helpful because those subjects that you definitely didn't do as well as you wanted to in, you are able to go back and reassess where you're finding things difficult, and over the summer or into the first few months of year 11, you are able to sort that out and get that back where it should be. And now we're on to the advice for year 11s. So my first piece of advice for year 11s is to make sure you know what exam boards you're on and what your exam dates are. Of course, these won't be released as soon as you go back. You'll probably have to wait till March. I think that's when we got ours. But make sure you know your exam boards. I had friends that didn't know what exam board we were on until like the week of the exam. And it's not necessarily majorly important, but if you're aware of the exam board you're on, then you will probably be able to find practice tests and mark schemes and examiners' reports a lot easier. Just kind of have a list anywhere on your phone, that's what I had, or on your wall, just keeping track of what subjects you have and what exam board you are on. The main two are normally AQA and Edexcel, but of course there are others that it may be. Another piece of advice for year 11s is get that revision timetable cracked. I personally didn't work with a timetable that worked weekly because I do a lot of drama and my rehearsal times did change a lot, and I had obviously a lot more commitments that meant that my week-to-week schedule wasn't always the same. However, if that works for you, go for it. There's nothing wrong with that. However, I worked in a way that Untitled Jade put in one of her videos, which is you work day by day. So at the end of one day, you write down what things you want to get done tomorrow or what you want to do in the next week. I personally think I'm quite good at being able to understand what is priority and what necessarily isn't. So if I had a piece of history work that I was really struggling with, I'd put that at the top of my to-do list. But then if I had a piece of English literature homework that I didn't really need to do, it wasn't compulsory, I'd put that near the end of the day, so if I was tired, I didn't necessarily need to do it. Of course, it is completely up to you, but I would really suggest that if you're in year 11 to make sure you have a timetable ready for your Christmas mocks and any other exams you may have in that year. Another piece of advice for year 11s, which you probably could put into year 10 as well, is read your set texts over the summer. I didn't do this, and when I went back in September, we were asked to read The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which was one of our set texts, and you can imagine the stress that we had to read that in. We had, I think, 2 weeks to read it. Not fun. So if you are aware of the texts that you're reading for the next year and your set texts, make sure you read them and you have the basic concept for them, especially for the Shakespearean and the 19th century text. You will feel so much less stressed and a lot more relieved when you don't have to read those when everyone does when you go back, and you will find it a lot easier when you come to analysing the text. Another piece of advice for year 11s is if your mocks don't go well, don't worry. You still have time to fix issues in any subject you may have. I think it is really stressful, especially when you get to Christmas of year 11, that you are kind of ticking down to the exams, and everyone feels that if you don't get what you're meant to in your Christmas mocks, you won't get that in the real thing, which is totally untrue. They will probably be a slight better reflection of you as a human and your subject choices than in year 10, but you still have time to fix things. You still have time to go and talk to teachers and work on issues that you may have in some subjects. So although these mocks probably are a bit more important, don't stress about them if something goes wrong. I definitely had friends who weren't thrilled with a grade they got in a subject, but they fixed it and they are on the track to get the grade they want. Another key piece of advice for year 11s is to prioritise the subjects that you might want to do at A-levels. I definitely did this when I realised how much work there actually is at GCSEs. I found it really useful to think about the subjects I might want to do at A-level and put those first, because as much as every subject deserves your time and effort, those that you want to do for A-level you may need certain grades for, and if you are not achieving them already, you will find it a lot harder in the summer to get those A-level choices. It doesn't necessarily mean don't prioritise every subject, because every subject deserves your worth, but just make sure that those you want to do for A-level have a bit more of your time. And now we are on to the advice for all year groups. My first tip is to keep everything organised at home and at school. If you don't have a way to track homework, make sure you have a planner. If you get a lot of work in class and worksheets and everything's on paper, make sure you have folders. I had 2 expandable folders that each section was a different subject. So if I was given a piece of work in class, I would take it home and put it into that folder, so if I ever needed to do some revision on that topic, I could just pull it out and I would have something to do. Also, I suggest having somewhere to put loads of practice tests that you do, with end of topic tests and any practice tests you print out from the internet, because they could come in useful when you are doing practice exam questions. Knowing where everything is and that everything has a purpose is the best way to go about it. You may not have use for everything. There may be things that you don't necessarily end up using. I definitely had a lot of paper that didn't ever get used. Just having it means that you have something else to look at if need be. You never know what you might need. A piece of advice I have for both year groups is to make sure you revise for your end of topic tests. I definitely didn't revise for all of them, and I really wish I did, because the revision sources you make for those topic tests you can use when you're revising for your end of your exams. And I think I definitely accumulated a lot of revision sources, and it saved me a lot of work when it came to revising in year 11, just because I had put the work in when revising for those end of topic tests. And it also helps you revise concepts that maybe you didn't understand that well. Trying to quickly briefly look over them in year 11, it gives you so much more time to just focus on one little bit and not a full course. Piece of advice I have is talk to your teachers after your tests if you're not happy with them. I definitely had a few tests that I was not happy with and I didn't like how they came out. But if you talk to teachers, they can tell you where you went wrong and help you improve. So if you ever feel like you did something wrong in a test and you don't know how or why, talk to your teacher. I definitely did that in maths and science. Just going to someone who has a bit more knowledge than I do and asking what I did wrong definitely helps you reevaluate how you go about the next test. Another piece of advice I have for those who are in top sets, and this can apply for everyone, but I found this being in top sets, is that you will start to compare your results more and more and more. You are in that set for a reason, and if the teachers thought there was a problem, they would come and talk to you. Do not ever doubt your worth in that set if you do not get a grade or result you desire. I had, in a lot of circumstances, I had grades that I wasn't really proud of, and I looked at the person next to me and they'd have a great grade. Just because they get a great grade does not mean that you can't improve and that you are really bad at the entire subject. It just means this area was not your strongest, which is fine. Everyone has their weak and strong points in every single subject. You've just got to keep going and remember that you can do it. Another piece is to help your friends, especially if you're in year 11. You're all in this together, and I'm not going to start singing High School Musical, but you're there to support each other and you're all in the same boat. The moment you start helping each other is the moment that you will feel so much more comfortable with the subjects you're doing. I had a friend that was really good at English and I wasn't that good, but then she considered me to be quite good at maths. So I helped her with maths while she helped me with English, and we'd sit on FaceTime, we'd sit on text, and we'd talk through whatever issue there was with that subject. And it is so nice to have a friend there that is willing to help you. So find that friend that maybe understands something you don't and sit with them, because you're not always going to have one-on-one support with teachers. So if you can find a friend that consider to be better at a subject than you, then you will feel really good about how you're going with that subject. And along that same vein is that if you feel your friend is struggling and you see them struggling, to talk to them and ask if they're okay. And if they don't want to help, then tell a teacher, because there are definitely times in year 11 especially when things will get too much and your friends will need you there. Because in my opinion, you show your most vulnerable side to your friends. So if you are able to keep an eye on them and make sure they're doing okay, that is going to help them more than probably a teacher would at that point. Be kind to your teachers, because they're there for a reason. I definitely wasn't fond of some of my teachers, but they're there for a reason and they're there to help you pass your exams. So if you're kind to them, they will be kind back, hopefully. Teachers come in all shapes and sizes, and some of them are great, some of them are not so great, but they're there to help you. And my last piece of advice is to make sure you have all your equipment. This sort of applies more to year 10s at the start to make a good impression. But if you turn up to a lesson with all the right equipment, then your teachers will have a great perspective on you and know that you want to work hard and you're ready to learn. And in some cases that may give you a chance to have more attention from them and more help from them, because they would rather focus on those that want to learn rather than trying to encourage those who don't. And I know sometimes you're like, when am I going to need a pair of compasses? When am I going to need a protractor? And when am I going to need a calculator? But you never know. The lesson you don't bring it, you're probably going to have to use it. And if you really don't want to carry those things around, talk to your teacher, ask when you're going to be using them so you have time to prepare for them. So that about does it for this video. It's a bit short and a bit choppy because I've had to refilm this. So I hope you liked it, and if you enjoyed this sort of thing, then please make sure to subscribe and give it a like and share it with your friends if you have any that are going into the same year group as I've mentioned. It would mean a lot to me. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment them down below. I will do my very best to get back to you. And also, if you have any questions that are slightly more personal, or you want to just chat about anything I've mentioned in this video, my Twitter is _LeahJade, and I will message you on there. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye!